Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I'm headed out into the garden to do my weekly garden tour, but I am probably going to end up cutting it short because we got a big old storm rolling in here. So the garden is in a bit of a state of chaos at the moment because I came out this morning and I spent the entire morning out here working, and one of the big things I did was I ripped out the purple potted pole beans. Ripped them all out because they weren't really producing anymore. The NT half runners will probably be getting pulled out this week as well because they are really slowing down to where they're not really producing anything anymore. So this is basically making room to plant some other things. I will come in here, I will amend the soil, add a little bit of compost in there, and then I will plant something on that trellis. Have to start going through my seeds and deciding what I want to put in there. So this is the time of year where things start getting a little unpleasant. We really have super hard pest pressure, and we start dealing with a lot of things dying back and all of that. Something else that died on me was my butternut squash. The plants completely died. And I've got all these little butternut squash laying all over the place. I picked a whole bunch of them, took them all in the house. I don't know if they're going to be any good. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I don't really know for certain what happened to the squash plants. I don't know why they just shriveled up into nothing and died. But I have a suspicion, which I will get to in a second. But first, I want to show you this. So this is my patch of peppers that was all volunteers. There was a ton of them here, and I just let a handful of them stay and grow. Didn't know what kind of peppers they were, but I do now. You look right down in here. They are Tabasco peppers, because I've got a whole bunch of these little bitty green peppers all over the place. So I did not plant Tabasco peppers, but I got them. Alright, my squash plants down here, these are my yellow crookneck squash. They are beginning to look pretty sad. They are still producing. As a matter of fact, I got one right there I need to harvest. Still got little baby squash that are continuing to grow. So as long as they keep producing, they will stay there. Over here is the watermelon. These are Jubilee watermelons, and I've got a whole bunch of watermelons in here. All sorts of them. There's one right down there under the squash plant. There's one right over there. There's a great big one right back there. And there's a couple more here and there throughout this patch. So last week I talked about how I was losing all of my dill and parsley to the swallowtail butterfly caterpillars, and I wasn't too awful heartbroken because I knew it was going to happen. And those caterpillars, those butterflies, they really only live on dill and parsley. And so if you plant it, it's a very good chance that you're going to get those. And you know, I came out here and I filmed that garden tour, and I had all of those caterpillars all over the place. And do you know, the very next day I came out and I could not find a single one of them. And I've looked several times now, and I don't know what happened to them. You know, I don't think that they were ready to go into cocoons. Maybe some of the bigger ones were, but the little ones definitely weren't. So I don't know if birds came and ate them or what, but one day there was a whole bunch of them, and the next day there wasn't any. Alright, so here I am at my zucchini bed. Now I have begun dealing with something that I really am not happy about, and as a matter of fact I see another one right here. That is a squash vine borer. That is the spawn of Satan, murderer of squash plants. Alright, well there's one less of them in the world. Just saying. I will tell you that I know that they are a really big problem in the South. This is the first year I've ever actually seen any. I have lost squash plants to things, but I don't know that I've ever actually lost one to a squash vine borer. And, but I have this year. I have dealt with every pest imaginable this year, except literally one. There is one pest that I have not seen this year, amazingly, and that is a tomato hornworm. Can you believe I have not seen any of those this year when I've seen everything else there is imaginable? But let me show you what happens with a squash vine borer. Over there, big beautiful zucchini plants, and over here, death and destruction. And if you ever wonder what is wrong with your zucchini plant, and if you think it might be a squash vine borer, here's what to look for. Look right down in there at the base of the plant. You see how it looks like wet sawdust? That is the telltale sign that you've got a squash vine borer. And what happens is the adult comes in and it inserts eggs into your squash plant. The babies, the eggs, then hatch, and the pupa, the larva, crawl around inside your plant and they eat it from the inside out. And once you get squash vine borers, that's pretty much the death nail for your squash plants. So as of right now, those plants down there are still producing. I'm still getting zucchini every day, but these ones down here are pretty much toast. And so I am going to come in here and I'm going to actually pull these out, because if I've got squash vine borers in there, maybe if I pull them out and get them out of here, maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, it will spare those. I won't hold my breath, but you know, maybe. Alright, my great big pepper bed in here is doing fantastic. I harvest about 5 gallons of peppers today. All different kinds of peppers. These right here are paprika peppers, which I've actually got a few more that are just about ready to pick. So this is the jigsaw pepper, and this one is actually doing really well. Now the plant is a lot smaller than all of the other pepper plants, but it is loaded with these little peppers, and look how dark they are. They are a deep dark purple, almost black. But the plants themselves are just gorgeous. Look at how they have all of this variegated color. It's purple and green and white. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Another one that is going crazy with the peppers is this pepperoncini. Look at all these peppers. And I've got a bunch of these plants, and every one of them is just completely loaded down with this. And I've had a bunch of people asking me how I'm going to use all of these peppers. So pepperoncinis are great stir-fried. You can kind of dice them up and stir-fry with them, but you can also pickle them really well. And so I plan on actually pickling quite a few of these this year. These are the sweet Lesia or Lesia peppers. Look at these things. They're kind of cool looking. They're very pointy. Alright, so while that pepper bed is doing fantastic, but this one is a slightly different story. You'll notice that there's something missing. The tomatoes. Every one of the tomato plants came out of this bed this week. Cleaned it all out. They had reached their end. just dealing with blight and all of that. And so I cleared out a lot of this. I have a ton of basil down in here, purple opal. I've got some Tulsi over here, some Genovese basil, and some more Tulsi down here. You can see where I've cut a lot of this off. So I cleared out all of the tomato plants and everything, and so now I've got some space where I can start thinking about planting other things. And I almost forgot to show you. You may remember back to earlier in the garden season how I was struggling so bad with the slugs and how I was having to replant and replant my sunflowers. Well, this sunflower patch was finally able to start growing. It beat the slugs, and look, my beautiful queen lime sunflowers are now in full bloom. And I have some sunflowers down here that have also finally overcome the slug infestation. And I'm fairly certain these right back here were queen lime. Did I say queen lime sunflowers? Lemon queens. I think these were lemon queens. Already I can see multiple heads forming on here. However, this one right down here, and there's a few more back through here, these are actually red Mexican sunflowers. You can see they have a different kind of leaf on there. So I'm really happy to see that these have actually made it, because this is my first year growing these, and I really wanted to have the red sunflowers, and it looks like it's finally going to happen. My cosmos are fully flowering now. So pretty. And these zinnias, look how bright these things are. They're beautiful. And my yarrow has flowered. And now that there's more sunlight in this area with those beans gone, I'm hoping that that one down there is able to take off and reach the point of flowering as well. Alright, so coming out here into the front garden, the raised bed garden, desperately needs mowing again. When doesn't it? But check this out. So I have cucumbers planted over there on that trellis, and they have come through the garden bed all the way out to the fence. I think I'll actually try and direct this onto the fence itself and just let it go. Alright, it's starting to get a little bit dark, but I'm going to try and show you the front garden, a little bit of what's going on out here. The loofah gourd has gone crazy again, just like it did last year. I was out here working this morning and pruning and picking and harvesting, and I had to pull vines down off of everything. But it has gone all the way up this side, over the top, and has wrapped up all around that Mongolian giant sunflower up there. And the sunflower is actually past its prime. It is hanging over and developing seeds at this point. So I'm just hoping that it can handle all of this loofah gourd on it. We'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. I've got about 7 hummingbirds that have been fighting over this feeder that we have out here. Alright, so my Kajari melons, still doing great, still getting bigger. I come out here and I check them constantly, watching to see if any of them are beginning to ripen. I think the first one that will ripen will probably be this one because it's getting the most sunlight. And look at this, I'm beginning to see a little bit of orange starting to develop. So I think it won't be too much longer before I'm able to try these beauties. Now, while I did end up pulling all of the tomato plants out of the big garden, I do still have tomatoes out here in the front garden. Most of the plants that I had out here, while some of them are looking a little bit rough, most of them are still producing. I'm still getting a bunch of the Berkeley pink tie-dye, or pink Berkeley tie-dye, whatever you call it. Lots of zinnias, of course, and cosmos. But the Dr. Weiss tomatoes are doing fantastic. The plants are looking a little bit crunchy here and there, but we are still producing. I'm still getting a bunch of tomatoes. And these Dr. Weiss tomatoes are my favorite. I mean, look how big these things are. They're just gorgeous. Love them. I am fairly certain that I will always grow the Dr. Weiss tomatoes. This one over here, this was my Paul Robeson. I had 2 Paul Robeson plants. One of them had that virus and I had to pull it out. The other one, while it is looking a little bit rough here and there, it is still producing. I'm still getting lots of tomatoes. And so it's done pretty well, despite having to get heavily pruned because of blight and all that. So it goes way up there on the trellis. See that? So does the Dr. Weiss. Alright, so over in here, this is all flowers and cucumbers and herbs and all sorts of things. My jungle of a flower bed, of a garden. We are getting lots of cucumbers, both the Ashley cucumbers as well as the Nationals pickling cucumbers, and we're pretty happy with them. Although I will say that this cucumber on this side, this National cucumber, has climbed all the way up the Mongolian giant sunflower, and there are little baby cucumbers all the way up at the top. So I don't know how I'm supposed to harvest those, but yeah, there's cucumbers growing up in there. So that is it. I am swiftly losing light and I am getting eaten up by gnats. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this tour for this week. If you are new here to the channel, I am a writer and blogger over at cosmopolitancornbread.com, where there are hundreds of recipes and articles. I do these garden tours every week all through the garden season, and I generally do about 3 videos a week on the YouTube channel on homesteading, home cooking, and back to basics. So if you aren't already subscribed, I would love for you to join me here and hit that subscribe button. So with that, thanks for hanging out with me here again in the garden. My name is Constance, and I'll talk to y'all next time.